Yes, of course. We've had a good conference, I think. Um, Excellent parade of speakers with lots of different perspectives, but I think very interestingly, 3 or 4 absolutely core themes which seem to have been revisited and probably strengthened. Many of them were kicked off by our chairman's presentation first thing yesterday morning, Martin Dunford, who flagged up some big issues, which I'm delighted to say seems to have stayed the test of the 2 days and been picked up by others. I think probably the overarching one is what we now refer to as integration of education, employment and skills. The theme of the conference was employment and skills and has been for the last couple of years. Well, we're now expanding that. We've introduced that word integration, or trying to introduce it, integration of education, employment and skills. And basically what we're saying here, and I think it's beginning to happen, long way to go, is the bringing together, if you like, of the policies or key policies of 3 government departments. We've been on the tack for 2 for some years, basically BIS and DWP. We're now really wanting to bring DFE into that because they are a part of that, and saying there needs to be an overarching policy which brings them all together. And I think that shows itself as developing in several ways. There does seem to be a cross-departmental acceptance of the importance of apprenticeships. You've now got ministers from all 3 departments openly, and indeed beyond them into the cabinet, prime minister even, openly declaring the importance and the priority of apprenticeships. That seems to be really well embedded now as a government policy, and the 3 departments are acknowledging that. I think what we're now saying, however, is that preparatory training for those people who are not yet at a position or in a position to take on an apprenticeship. They're just not ready for it yet. They're not going to persuade the employer to take them on at the moment. That preparatory training, as we call it, pre-apprenticeships, the minister called it yesterday, talking about the same thing, is now, I think, something which needs 3 departmental support. And what we're arguing for is that the various monies that those departments have got for people in the NEET group, highly politically important at the present time, long-term unemployed for DWP under the work programme, you take that unemployed group of young people and indeed older people, what we're arguing for is you've got 3 departments with lots of money here. Can we please sort of bring these together with a clear objective and give providers, my members, the flexibility and scope to say, take the money and move them through preparatory training up to an apprenticeship and beyond into long-term sustainable employment. That's what we claim we are able to do. We want a bit of help. We don't want lots of separate well-intentioned programs, well-intentioned in their own right, but coming from 3 different departments, different rules, different regulations, which absolutely goes completely contradictory to the government's intention to reduce bureaucracy. They're actually created by that way. So that's been a big theme, integration of education, employment and skills. But there's one other element there which we're focusing at DFE and takes us into another big theme, which is information, advice and guidance. We are absolutely not content that young people, whilst at school, are being, and lots of evidence yesterday, lots of statistics, some frightening statistics, from young people saying, in one case, we were never told about apprenticeships. And even worse, we were told about apprenticeships and told to steer away from them. It was low-grade opportunities for the poorly educated or low achievers. I mean, evidence from young people saying now this is scandalous. We've got to get the DFE to put into practice their conceptual policy of preparing their charges for the world of work. And that does not happen in every school. Many schools, fantastic job. So the concept of information, advice and guidance and the acceptance by DFE of a real responsibility to make sure that all young people, whilst in full-time education, are really given maximum information about the various routes open to them. That has got to happen, and that requires a 3-departmental consensus about what is really important. And I think those themes came through very, very importantly yesterday. And at the core of all that is what is generally called work-based learning. Our chairman referred to it as work-located learning. It's very interesting to see other speakers picking up that better term in their views. They thought it was actually rather more descriptive, accurately descriptive work-located training. And it goes back, and we deliberately took it back to the Leach report of 6 years ago now, that from all its recommendations, well received by all the political parties, but one of the key recommendations that didn't quite get the level of importance and priority that it should have done, but I think its time is now, is that work-located training, learning at work, is a critical necessity for the economic well-being of this country. It is that important, which is why schools have got to recognise it and prepare people for it. And we've also got to have policies from government to fund and to prepare people to actually maximise learning at work, which is critically important for all of us. There's nobody here or in the auditoriums that has not experienced the reality and the necessity of having to learn massive amounts at work to do their evolving jobs properly. It's a sort of a reality we all know, but it hasn't yet got quite into the heart of government policy. I think that's the theme of the last couple of days, and I think we're actually moving in the right direction here. So very, very important, and very exciting for us, because my members are so-called work-based learning, work-located learning providers is what they do. And of course what it does, and this is a battle we've been on for some time, that concept of getting unemployed people, young and old, prepared to enter the world of work and then to develop the skills whilst at work. What that actually says is the other missing player often in those debates is the employer. By definition, you're focusing people for the world of work to get employment, to carry on developing. So the role of employers is absolutely critical. My members are employer focused, something which they say with pride. Now that's been a theme of the last couple of days, and we've had some employers and some really quite inspirational ones as well, who've actually grasped their responsibility and have proudly and rightly so developed some of the innovatory ideas that they're using with their employees, not just younger employees. Now I think we've actually sort of picked up that the employer role in all this is absolutely crucial, and what that does, it links skills and learning with employers, economy and growth. That's pretty close to the high level politics of the moment, is it not? Growth is the word, and I think there's really been an understanding that skill development for employers and the economy and growth is something which the people in our auditorium for the last 2 days are critically involved in. And guess what? It might be a touch more important than people have given credit for in the past. That's, I think, been a theme. We claim that. I think we've had speakers from all over the place who are beginning to recognise that reality, and I think that augurs well, not just for my members who do business in that area, not just their learners who are being prepared to take their place or to continue their role in work. It does actually augur well for the economy and growth and all those high-level political issues which are perhaps just a little bit beyond us. I think it could actually have a really impact. Now I think that's the theme of this conference, and I'm really quite excited that we've touched on those critical and very topical issues. Yeah, we're grazing into a crystal ball, and it'd be nice if we saw some themes together. I suspect we will. That equally we'll have different views, because that's the nature of crystal ball gazing, isn't it? I think what I've just been saying about the importance and the relationship of skills to employer success, economy, growth, I mean, that's pretty heavy stuff, isn't it? I think that will strengthen over the next 10 years the themes that we've actually listened to and embarked upon in debates over the last 2 days. So I'm really quite optimistic that that link between skills and the ultimate economy, and therefore the success of the nation, it sounds pretty grand, doesn't it? I think that that linkage will continue to strengthen, and therefore the role of employers within that will continue to strengthen. And I think there'll be some changes. Some of them will be challenging to my members. I think there is every opportunity that employers will be more and more centrally positioned on that agenda, as opposed to the government being in the central position, making the decisions, making the policies, deciding where the money goes. I think we might well be seeing a shift in employer ownership, and that's a term which we've talked that that's a program at the moment, but the literal meaning of it, that employer ownership of the skills agenda, I think will grow. I think we'll see the vast majority of skills development money will increasingly come from employers, and employers will engage members to deliver it for them, as opposed to the government engaging members to deliver their policies. Now, it probably won't ever be an all or none, but I think there'd be, over 10 years, I really think there'd be a big movement of employers recognising that skill development is a critical necessity and investment for their future success, and the government moving back to fundamental education and topping people up to a basic level, and then saying to employers, you know, we've given you the raw material, they can read, they can write, big issues, they've got some fundamental generic skills, we've done that, taxpayer pay for that, you've got to take them on development. I think that will strengthen. I think employers will take that responsibility, and they'll be the ones pulling our members in to then actually do the skill delivery to their specification. Now, that's a very, very overview generic thing. There's lots of implications of all that. And tremendous opportunities for my members if it goes that way, but they need to be looking at the market in a different way. The market will be employers writing the checks and individuals writing the checks. Very controversial loans. We've got it for higher education, we've had it for a few years. Very controversial when that was introduced. It's now taken as read. The controversy now is not whether it should be there, it's at what level. If you think of the more recent one, I think loans will move, and you'll see individuals contributing more and more to their skill development as a means of their own success. Employers will be investing more, and I think the government will be far more at the educational end, getting people up to a starting point. And I think our members will have to readjust, because they'll still be expected to do the same skill development work, but they'll be looking for a different paymaster. They'll do their basic skills, get some money for the government, but increasingly I think they're going to be looking at employers and individuals to actually stump up and write the checks, to carry on doing the work they do now, and that just means some market readjustment. So overall, lots of implications underneath that. I think that's the way we're going, and I will predict in 10 years' time the government involvement will be much smaller, and very much at the educational end, with the rest going to society as a whole. I'll be very interested to see if that lines up with anything my chairman said.